But now we'd like to go ahead and bring this program back and recognize for this month, the Business of the Month. Just a quick little background on this business. They've been here in our community for some time now, and they just recently actually relocated onto our main street right across the street, which is so amazing, especially during a year like this, to be able to expand your business and move to a new location and have a beautiful storefront. It says a lot about the type of business that they are and how resilient they are. I'd like to congratulate Padink's Boutique as Business of the Month for September. The owner, Tricia Baumgartner, she is so resilient and she's so creative. And if you look at her business and the type of unique shopping experience that she offers here in the community, you're not going to find that anywhere else. And so it's so amazing to have that here in our backyard. So with that, I'd like to bring Sandy up. She is the Executive Director of the Fort Morgan Chamber to say some words as well.
Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me. The Fort Morgan Chamber of Commerce is just thrilled to have this partnership with the city of Fort Morgan. And so, again, thank you to all of you for recognizing a lot of our businesses. I was especially excited that Padink's was chosen. Padink's is a chamber member and has been for several years. We were also very excited when they had their re-grand opening not too long ago. I want to say a month or two ago. Time flies, I guess, right, when you're having fun. And so we felt that, again, Padink's really epitomizes what some of our small businesses have had to put up with. As Sarah mentioned, this has been a very trying time, especially for our business communities, and has particularly hit our small businesses very hard. Padink's, instead of sitting back, said, let's pivot. That's our favorite word of the day. Let's pivot our business and let's maybe take a look at what we can do differently to grow our business. And they certainly have demonstrated that as well with their brand new business on Main Street. So again, congratulations to Padink's. Thank you, City of Fort Morgan, for being such a supporter of our commerce in our community. It really means a lot to have your support. So thank you.
And in case you haven't seen this sign in a while, we got a new one. So this will be in front of their storefront starting tomorrow. So this is for you guys, and then here's your award. Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Next on the agenda is a presentation and possible action on a request for in-kind services and fee waivers for the Fall Harvest Car Show. Mr. Sampson.
Told you I was going to be back.
Hi, Steve.
So what you have before you is a very similar request to last council meeting. This is for the Fall Harvest Car Show, which is scheduled to be held from September 18th to September 20th, which includes shelter rental at City Park, the picnic tables, damage deposit for the park, the use of the band shell over that 3-day period, trash units, dumpster units, and police officer work. For your information, we took a good opportunity to review both the Suicide Awareness Festival and the car show at the same time, since their blueprints were very, very similar. The department heads all met with both event organizers at the same time so we could review their needs, seeing they were very, very similar. Worked very, very well. So very pleased with how our department heads have worked. Everything from streets to power to parks to police and everything in between. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. I don't know if anyone is here from the car show, so. Oh, no, sorry, I missed you. Yep. So If not, I'll turn the time over to them if you have questions for them.
Steve, can you remind me of our internal procedure to bring these requests to council? So if it's just over $1,000, right, then it comes to us? Okay.
So my understanding is we offer in-kind services up to $1,000, which can be approved by the city manager's office.
Okay.
So Steve himself handles those. If they are over 1,000, then it must be brought forth to council.
I just wanted to remember the threshold. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
And I guess my only follow-up question to that, and this is kind of piggybacking on when we're reviewing the police in-kind service, are we still, is 38 hours, there's like a calculation for police right in the middle column, and then there's kind of a side thing about having 2 officers, and it has some different shifts. So is this kind of the case where we're just going to go over what we think we're going to use, and then...
This was the estimate that we
Okay.
used from last year,
Okay.
from what we looked at things. So there's very likely going to need adjustments, as we've already seen some adjustments needed due to COVID-19. In fact, they're not going to be using that many picnic tables, I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
We've already reviewed that, so.
Cool. Thanks. Those are my initial questions.
Yeah.
Any other questions? With that, I'll entertain action.
Your Honor, if a resolution on the request of in-kind service be waived for the Fall Harvest Car Show for amount of $5,733.90.
All right, I have a resolution made by Doug Shasso, a second by Brian Urdialis. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great event for the town. I'm so glad we didn't have to skip it this year, because I really enjoy it.
Next on the agenda is council acting as local liquor license authority with a presentation and possible action on formal acceptance of an application for a new fermented malt beverage license for Stinker Store at 601 Main Street. Request a schedule a public hearing on the application for October 6th. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is the first step in the application process for a new liquor license. We received this one on August 13th and have been working with the applicant. This is the new gas station convenience store at the corner of Platt and Main. All we're asking the council to do today is formally accept this application. That starts a 30-day waiting period before which or after which a public hearing can be held. And during that time, the applicant will probably gather signatures, other evidence of support for the license. Petitions are not a requirement, but they're the easiest way to show support rather than trying to get a bunch of people to come to the council meeting and vouch for them. The application has been reviewed by my office, the attorney's office, and the police department. Everything appears to be in order, and the fees have been paid. And if we accept this application tonight, we would schedule the public hearing for final approval of the new license for October 6th.
Any questions?
None for me.
All right. I'll entertain action.
Your Honor, I offer a resolution to accept the application for a new fermented malt beverage license for Stinker Stores and request to schedule a public hearing for this application on October 6th.
Second.
All right, I have a resolution made by Ali Howe, a second by Doug Shasso. Please vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is a presentation and possible action on the first reading of ordinance amending section 2-9-10, the Historic Preservation Board established of the Fort Morgan Municipal Code, and request to schedule a public hearing on ordinance for September 15th, 2020. Ms. Crossway?
Hi again. So on your agenda, you have one of many first steps that we need to take to move forward with the CLG. COG is a certified local government. It basically provides benefits for communities that have a large population of historical buildings, such as ours. Our downtown and even beyond that has a lot of historical buildings that would benefit for some of the features that a COG offers in terms of grants and just resources on how we can continue to preserve these buildings. So the first item on here is to schedule a public hearing on changing the ordinance for the Historic Preservation Board. If you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. I know Nina worked really hard on getting all this stuff together as well, so she's probably more of a subject expert matter than I am. And I do want to add as well that we did take this to the Historic Preservation Board at our last meeting, and they have recommended for us to move forward with a CLG, and they've reviewed all of these documents, and they were in agreement with it as well.
So thank you for your work, Sarah.
Well, thank
Good
you.
job.
Any questions for Sarah?
I don't know if it's a question for Sarah, Nina, or Lynn, but just for the benefit of the public, could you, whoever wants to tag team it, just some context why this is a good move for the city of Fort Morgan?
Yeah, I'll briefly talk on just the benefits of a CLG. So certified local government, it's ran through History Colorado, and it's funded through the Main Street program here in the state of Colorado. And it's basically just a pool of resources that provides locations such as ours that have historical buildings on various resources and also preserving the integrity of our buildings. So I think here in Fort Morgan, especially in our downtown, it makes sense to have something like this. We want our community to grow, and we want our buildings to not only maintain their integrity, but be able to adapt to new uses. And having additional grants and resources available to those building owners, I think is going to serve as an asset in the long run in terms of development.
And I might add another reason, a strong reason for it is when anyone that's designated locally, if they apply for a grant, when you're a CLG, it says that you have professional credentials and are very capable of doing the grant. So it's kind of like having a accreditation below, but it also has some grant opportunities too, with no match. So it's a very powerful tool to have in the
Right.
city.
And so these changes that we're getting ready to make, those just reflect the obligations that the CLG credentialing comes with.
Yeah, so we're basically setting the scene right now to move forward with a CLG designation, and that would go through History Colorado. But like I said, this is one of many first steps. There's a lot of stuff that we will have to do along the way as we're moving this process forward, but I think at least getting these changes done will allow us to then move on to the second step.
Cool.
And I'll give you an example what can happen with the CLG accreditation. If one of the stores would like to apply for a grant from the Historical Society, the city, the facade program grant that they give up to $5,000, that can be matched, be doubled. For instance, the health food store, they received a $3,000 award. And if we have this in place and we can go in and apply for a historical grant for the storefront and double that amount, because it would be a 50-50 match.
Great.
She could have gotten 6. The windows, I think, cost $9,000, as she told me, and the city provided 3, which is great. But we could have doubled that. So going forward, we can double the money that the city puts up for facade grants.
Cool.
So just to speak specifically to the ordinance, all of this specific ordinance does is change that the board must meet quarterly instead of annually. That's on page 62 of your packet. And then it just removes one small reason for removal from our register of designated properties. So those 2 items were identified by someone from the state that Sarah and Lynn have been working with to amend the code. But like Sarah said, this is first of many steps. There's 3 things on tonight. You'll see another resolution on next meeting. We're also going to, I would recommend we amend our land use code so we have a district with the historic district. So whenever we change certain things to certain properties, it goes through a process. So Lynn and Sarah gave good overview of like the general, but this ordinance is really making very, very small tweaks, and that's just to those little requirements or things that they're identifying as they work with Sarah, what needs to be changed in our code and our resolution to take those next steps.
Awesome, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. Any more questions?
None for me.
All right, with that, I'll entertain action.
Your Honor, I offer resolution on the first reading of an ordinance amending Section 2-910 Historic Preservation Board established of the Fort Morgan Municipal Code and request to schedule a public hearing on the ordinance for September 15th, 2020.
Second?
All right, I have a resolution by Lynn Deal and a second by Ally Howe. Please vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is presentation and possible action on amending the bylaws of the Historic Preservation Board. Ms. Crosswade.
So this again is just another step in moving towards a CLG designation. These bylaws reflect what a CLG board would need to look like, and so we're just making those changes as well.
And these bylaws already exist. Again, the only changes we made is, we did notice some little grammatical things that we changed on page 70 while we were changing anyway, but we changed it to meeting at least quarterly to, reflect what we did with the code, and that's on page 70 of your agenda. And then the same deletion of the removal criteria on page 72. So it's just to make sure that what you just did for the ordinance for first reading is also reflected in the bylaws.
And the Historic Preservation Board is aware of all this?
Yes, they read through all these documents and they voted as a board to move forward with it.
Oh, same with the ordinance. We forgot to mention that. They met on August 14th and approved all that, or August 13th, I think.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Nope.
I'll entertain action.
Your Honor, I offer a resolution amending the bylaws of the Historic Preservation Board.
Second?
All right, I have a resolution by Lynn Deal and a second by Doug Shasso. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, well, thank you. All right, next we have a presentation and possible action amending the criteria for historic landmark district designation.
Again, this is just in keeping with moving forward with the CLG. When we have a CLG designation, part of that boundary that's created is going to have buildings, obviously, or properties located within it, and there's certain criteria that they have to meet in terms of getting designated. And so we're just following the script of what a CLG would be included.
And then just to clarify, these criteria already exist. Anything that we're amending is just underlined it in bold, and that was just minor changes that the state recommended. But if you look through pages 77 and subsequent pages, you'll see there's just very minor little changes that they looked through and said, add these words, and it's not really very substantive. It's just to clarify what they need to see.
Any questions?
None for me.
All right, I'll entertain action.
Your Honor, I offer a resolution amending the criteria for historic landmark district designation.
Second?
I have a resolution by Lynn Deal, a second by Ally Howe. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks very much.
Next on the agenda is a presentation and possible action on bids to purchase laptop computers for the mobile data terminal project at the police department. Commander Sharp.
Good evening. So I have a couple things, both things on the agenda kind of fit together, so I'll just kind of give a history of all of it together and how it works. But we budgeted $55,000 to start an in-car computer or MDT program within the police department. The plan initially was to do this over a period of years to get them all in. This year I reached out to CIS, which is the company that does our records management system, and they were willing to offer us a deal if we did all of our computers, which saves us about $26,000.
Wow.
On top of that, they would give us no interest financing for 3 years to allow us to pay that out So we're able to do all of those hopefully at once with this. So that being said, on the laptop computers, we went to state bid. There's an ASPO agreement. The reason for that ties into the second one. Instead of going to bid, procurement policy allows us to do that in some circumstances. The upfit could not be done without knowing what computers we're going to do. And because the upfit takes many months to do and we had to go to a bid process on that, we're asking for the MDTs from a state bid, which we got that price from Nelson through the NASPO agreement. And 20 of those computers for the Dell Latitude, 5310 is $27,240. So we're asking the city council approve that amount for the purchase of the computers.
Any questions for Commander Sharp?
Just because it's, it's fun for us to learn timelines on this, so, because, like, you know, with the fire department, it takes, you know, a year to build a thing. So with this installation, the upgrades, and then getting them installed, how long does that take?
So the installation, I don't really know. That's part of the next one is the upfit, but the company that gave us a bid is the same company we've been using for our patrol vehicles. It's been about 3 to 4 months for that, so I'm guessing we're probably in that same time frame. They did say they would come out and do all of the vehicles at our lot at the same time to make it quicker, but we really don't know what that process is, because it's whenever, depends on how many vehicles are coming in and how busy they are, we go to the back of the line. So we were guessing months, which is why we wanted to do this a little bit quicker.
Cool. And I have a question for the next one, but I'm good for
Okay.
this one.
All right, well then, there's no more questions, then I'll entertain action.
Your Honor, approve a resolution on the bids of purchase laptop computers for the mobile data terminals, MDT project for the police department. That's for $27,240.
All right, I have a resolution by Doug Chasso, a second by Brian Ardiales. Vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is presentation and possible action on bids, purchase, and installation of equipment for MDT at the police department. Commander Sharp.
Thank you. So again, this is continuing on the same thing. This is the upfit, and we're asking for upfits of 15 vehicles. You notice on the other one, we're asking for 20 computers. We have 20 patrol officers. Between sergeants and officers work patrol. They would be the ones benefiting from this. However, we purchased new vehicles earlier this year, and we were able to get those upfits included in that. So all of our vehicles will be upfit, and each officer will have their own computer, but we don't need those extra 5 upfits because of the changes in the vehicles. So we did go out to bid on August 13th. We got the bids back on August 26th. Again, the reason this was important to us is they couldn't give us the upfit price until we knew what computers we were going to go with. So we did get a bid back. We got one from a company called Laws for $12,858.60. We're asking for $14,000 to be, not to exceed $14,000 to be approved for the upfits of these vehicles.
And you had mentioned that we currently use this company?
Laws is the
Yeah.
company that does our upfits for all of our cars. That they have been for the last couple of years anyway.
So yeah, my only question is, are they good to you? Good customer service?
They have been good. I mean, so there's only 2 or 3 companies in the entire state of Colorado that do all of the police vehicles. So I think they've been good customer service. We don't get the service as quickly as we'd like, but it's quicker than the last company we were using. Everybody's just overwhelmed with the amount of work. So many police cars and not enough companies to compete
Right.
for it. So
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Just glad to see this done, because I remember when I was on council before, we started doing that, but didn't have everything to go with it, so now it'd be fun to see it complete.
it's been a long process.
Yeah.
All right, with that, I'll entertain action.
Your Honor, for resolution on the bid to purchase and install the equipment for the MDT, the police department from Laws, not to exceed $14,000.
Second?
All right, I have a resolution by Doug Chasso, a second by Ali Howell. Please vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is a public hearing on ordinance number 1245, an ordinance adopting the 2015 International Residential Code by referencing and making conforming amendments. This is a public hearing. Please keep public comment to the issues before the city council. Each speaker is asked to limit comment to 3 minutes unless the speaker represents a group of citizens, in which event additional time may be allocated. Please respect these limitations. I reserve the right to limit public comment that is inappropriate under these guidelines, otherwise improper. I also reserve the right to limit testimony or questioning that is repetitive, cumulative, argumentative, or not pertinent to the issues, and to set a limit of duration of the testimony if I determine it to be necessary in light of the number of persons who have signed up to testify. First is the issue of legal notice. Mr. Brennan, has it been properly noticed?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, legal notice of this public hearing and the full text of the ordinance under consideration appeared in the Fort Morgan Times on July 17th and again on July 24th.
Next is the presentation of the ordinance. Mr. Kirkendall.
So as I presented last time, there's really no changes unless you guys have questions from what we presented the first time.
I think we bothered you enough last time, but yeah, no further questions from me.
All right. Next, we will hear public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on the issue? All right. If there is not anyone else in the public who wishes to speak on the issue, I will ask the city clerk if any oral or written comments were submitted to the clerk's office prior to this hearing.
Not through my office, Your Honor.
We will now proceed to council discussion. Are there any questions from council or any discussion of council on this?
Just a quick one about just kind of your current practice with communicating with local contractors because I know you've got probably a tight-knit communication with them as they're working through projects, but how will they be notified about the changes?
Well, we will visit with those that are interested in doing townhome types, which we now have 2 prospective projects that this would benefit them. They'll give them a choice.
Right.
Where in the past they didn't have a choice, they had to sprinkle. So now we do have 2 projects that will allow them to do that. And so normally that's how we reach out to them, is when they bring a project aboard, and as our process through the plan review and discussion, we present that to them, and most of them already know when it hits the papers, and they start, if they don't like it, then they start calling me.
Do you post anything on like the website, like on your specific page for contractors to visit, or?
That I don't know of how this will be posted to the city stuff.
I'm just like, if I was a developer looking at Fort Morgan, and I would start at the web page, so I was just curious. So
Do you mean the building code or the changes?
the changes.
So the changes, we're legally obligated to do extra notice, which we did 2 publications when we're adopting by reference. Building codes are, each one is like this thick,
Right.
and they always have to be available. I think we have them in the city clerk's office or is the building department. And our code, if you do this for a living, you know where to look in terms of the changes. So our
Okay.
code, I think it's chapter 18, the one that says building regulations. It'll say we adopt 2015 IRC, which if that's what you do, you have, you're familiar with the code, but then you go to the city specific to see what is being amended.
Okay.
So it's
Cool.
very clear in the code, and then if they want a copy, it's at the city clerk's office.
And typically, those folks will be in our office asking us questions before they even get started. So
Okay.
a lot of that gets vetted when we see them, so.
Thanks.
And then also on the city's website, if you look on it, you'll see different ordinances that have been passed as we adopted different codes.
Right.
So my guess is that if this gets passed, since it's an ordinance amendment, that it may reference this change, but I don't know how that gets to that point.
And usually they'll ask Mike, because your contact information is on the website, right?
Is that right?
They'll usually call you, right? About
Yeah.
you always, if if you're a contractor, you look at who the chief building official is, and Mike's contact information is on the website. You probably get calls all the time about code questions, right?
And right now, the 2 projects that are interested in this are waiting to see how this turns out. So my anticipation is that they'll be following up because they knew what was going on.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? If there's no further discussion by council, I'll entertain a motion to close or continue the public hearing.
So close.
Second.
I have a motion by Doug Schossel, a second by Allison Howe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, it closes. Now, for council items, we talk to Ms. Williams.
Yes. You have, obviously, you always have options here. If you were to approve the ordinance and want to adopt it, the option would be to make the resolution that's listed on page 2 of your agenda. And other options include to postpone it or table it or to vote against. But if you're like everything you see, the language that's good is that what's underneath council action on page 2 of your packet.
I will entertain action.
Your Honor, I offer a resolution to approve the second and final reading of ordinance 1245. It's an ordinance to adopt the 2015 International Residential Code by reference and making conforming amendments to our Fort Morgan Municipal Code and authorization to publish by title only.
Second.
I have a resolution by Allison Howe, a second by Doug Schossel. Please vote by roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. And next is the conclusion of the budget calendar for 2021 and the general fund departments. We will start with Mr. Gleimeyer.
Yes, thank you. So we've got several more general fund departments in front of you here tonight, and there'll actually be a few more at the next meeting, so I don't know that it's quite the conclusion of the 2021 general fund departments, but we'll invite up Chief Crone to speak on the police department budget first.
Good evening, council. I think probably the main thing that changed this year is we have a significant increase based on what you guys just voted on earlier, our software maintenance account. A lot of the digital stuff that we have deals with not just in-car computers, but also body-worn cameras and so on. One of the issues that we're dealing with is the cost of storing data, especially for the amount of time that we need to keep certain things based on the state retention requirements. We've increased that significantly. I think outside of that, that's probably the main account that we've had an increase. It's, I think, overall in our operation maintenance, the main accounts that we deal with is only about a 2.3% increase. But that one is significant. It's something we're not just required to do, but it's something that's truly a benefit to us. With body-worn cameras, or if there's any other data, we've got a couple different systems that we use. We're looking at getting different systems. The stuff that we have, especially body-worn cameras, are outdated. So we're looking at getting new cameras, but with that increase in better technology, there's a cost to saving the data, and we're looking at doing it more of a cloud-saving practice. One of the things that decreased, though, was our overall equipment. We had I think it was about a 2-year plan to equip the officers with some equipment that typically stays in their vehicles. We got that plan done actually sooner than later, so we kind of decreased that budget by several $1,000s. Outside of that, everything is pretty much consistent or pretty much similar to what we had for the 2020 budget. So that being said, any questions?
I only have one question. Well, it could turn into two, just warning. So first question is, so your line item for National Night is 0. Do you have another line that's kind of your community policing activities, like miscellaneous or?
Yeah, that account specifically was created because we have some money that was received from Cargill that we didn't use all of it last year.
Okay.
And if we end up having the event this year, we're still not 100% sure we'll go ahead and continue to use that. So we've adjusted some stuff around. We budget for that in a separate account. And Jeannie can maybe explain a little bit better, but there's some excess money in there that's going to be used before we go into actual O&M. So that's why that's looks like a new line item in there. But
more importantly, that question is if for community policing, like outreach, where that lives on here, or if you're planning to continue that, or what's? And I don't know if there's even additional costs or if it's just personnel. So it wouldn't be an additional line.
Which one are you looking at?
Oh, so, yeah, ignore any of the lines. I'm just asking if there's an additional cost for your community policing activities.
Yeah, we budget for various things. It can include cop cards that we give officers to hand out, typically for kids.
Yeah.
Other programs, whether it's National Night Out or any other events that we put on. If we purchase certain things we want to hand out at events, the upcoming event this weekend, we'll have a booth there. We'll hand out some stuff. Some of that stuff we'll get for free. Sometimes we get it from the public. But we do have a specific account that we've used throughout the years that whatever might come up, we'll try and do whatever we can public-wise. We're pretty well set for a lot of different handouts that we have, but anything that comes up, we do have, I think $1,000 with one of the accounts that is specifically earmarked for community-related events.
Cool. And then for the miscellaneous line, what do you guys plan on using that for?
Miscellaneous, there's several things that end up coming out of that. And I'm trying to look at my other notes here for, I'm going to find the right account number, 3295. And I wish maybe Jeannie can kind of explain a little bit better about specifically, is there anything miscellaneous? There's some departments that do different stuff with the miscellaneous. I hate to say it, it's kind of a catch-all. And I can't think of anything specific off the top of my head. It's not earmarked towards anything exact. I know over the last few years we've tried to kind of drill down as to exactly what do we use a miscellaneous for, or if it could be better looked at a specific account to say it fits better in this, and I think that's one of the specific ones that we haven't really drilled down exact what it looks like. So.
All right. No, that's all for me.
I have a question on the overtime expense. That one went up a little bit.
Yeah, if you look at 2018, we had a significant amount of overtime. And what we tried to do over the last couple of years is look at do we have any certain events that we're spending a lot more money on? One of the things that we looked at that we needed to make sure that we covered was we changed due to FLSA requirements. We used to be able to flex out a lot more time that officers have instead of paying overtime. That went from 170 hours in 28 days down to 85 hours in 14 days, and you just don't have enough time to flex it out. So what we have to end up doing is paying overtime for that, so we wanted to ensure that we had enough money for that. One of the other things that we've changed in this year is we're starting to do seatbelt enforcement. Even though it's grant funded, we still have to budget for that. We try and do a little bit above and beyond that as well, so that's another increase that we've had for this year. Again, with personnel, you never know how many people you're going to end up not having to where there might have to be coverage. That's one of the main reasons that we ended up increasing that. Sometimes we can be well under. Sometimes we've gone over budget, specifically in overtime.
Jared, did we get the issues with the air conditioner and the heater all fixed up this year?
Temporarily. That's going to be a capital project for next year. We've got, I can't remember what it is that we're kind of looking at next year, but that system is, the original part of it is obviously since 1986 when the building opened up, and again in 2000, the second unit that we put in. We definitely had some issues with it. We're spending upwards of about $10,000 a year, and it's getting to the point of it needs replaced instead of just continually repaired.
Okay. I was just under the impression we were going to finally fix that instead of kick it down the can.
We increased a specific line item for that just due to typical maintenance, HVAC maintenance as well, not just department-wide, but or building-wide. But next year we need to get it replaced. We really need to get it fixed.
I agree. Okay. I just thought that 31,000, that's really enough.
Yeah, that'll be a capital project.
Okay, all right. Thanks, man.
And that is a good segue and reminder that we did add a couple more items to the capital budget for the police department for next year. One of them is the firing range. That's a project we've talked about for some time and just have never completed. So we did add some money in the capital budget for that. And then fencing of the back lot where they park a lot of their vehicles. We're starting to see a lot more pedestrian traffic transversing through there, particularly with Centerpoint developing. So we talked about putting some fencing up around that lot to protect those assets that are back there. So you'll see those two items on the capital budget when you finally see it. Those were not on there when we presented the capital budget to you, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So
Thank you.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Good question. Are we fully staffed at this point as far as our officers?
No, we're not. We're going through a hiring process right now. We did an interview, I think, yesterday with a certified officer. They're few and far between to get certified officers. So what our plan has been over the last couple of years and what's worked out pretty well for us is to go through a cadet program, which means we hire a person, send them to the academy, we pay for the academy, we pay wages and so on during that time. More times than not, we end up getting somebody kind of local with the hopes of keeping them around. So we've got 2 or 3 positions in January at the academy that we can send people to. We have a current part-time intern that we've had for, I think she's been with us almost 3 years now, that she's going to be going to the academy in January. And then we hope to get 1 or 2 other people sent to the academy as well. And hopefully after that we'll be fully staffed, but you never know.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Thank you.
okay, so next we have the fire department. So Chief.
Good evening, how we doing?
Hi.
Good. Okay, so this year we kind of have a couple things that we're going to look at. We're looking at adding 2 more employees. We had the 24-hour thing kind of disappear about 4 years ago. So we're going to try and go back to our 24-hour dispatchers. I know we kind of talked about this, but to hit on why we're doing that, one of the big aspects is our ISO rating. ISO rating's huge for the city and the citizens. Right now, for a volunteer department, we are sitting at a 4. It goes as high as a 9. So right now, if we can get these 2 people approved, what we're looking at is hopefully keeping our 4, so that way your homeowners insurances don't go up. You know, it helps with our grants, it helps with everything else. So that is one of the things we look at too, and we pride ourselves on is our ISO rating. You don't go to many towns and see an ISO rating of a 4 for a volunteer fire department with 35 guys. Another thing too is safety of our citizens with the tornado sirens. We are responsible as a fire department to set off tornado sirens for us and Log Lane. So right now, I timed it the other day, we had a tornado warning come through. It took me 4 minutes to get from my house to the station to be able to set those sirens off, and 4 minutes is a lot of time when a catastrophe comes through. So also, the station is considered a safe haven. I believe it's the only safe haven in northeastern Colorado. Right now, with us not staffing 24 hours with our dispatchers, that safe haven is kind of null and void, but I mean, nobody knows it. Nobody's there 24 hours. So, and also just firefighter safety and station. We have a lot of money sitting in there. Sometimes our doors don't close when we leave, and you know, like Jared said, you got more traffic coming through, and one of those doors gets left open on accident. That's a lot of equipment that can get gone through, and it's not cheap to replace. So right now we're looking to increase that to 2 employees, which is around 90,000. That would give us our full staff back at what we used to have, so we can keep those things in our back pocket, especially our ISO. Like I said, it's something we pride ourselves on. So another thing too we're looking at increasing is our pension. Our pension fund is, and Jeannie can help me here if I butcher this, but I haven't been a lot on this, but we're looking to increase our pension fund to make sure we're sustainable. We make sure, you know, if we do have that bad market year, that we have the money to make sure our retirees that put in their 20 years get their pension and keep getting their pension. Not only that, that if we do have a good market year, it grows and we have money sitting in there. So, if we decide, we need to give our retirees a little more of a pension, we can do that. It's the money sitting there. So right now we're looking to increase that to about 200,000 from 167,000. And so is that about right, Jeannie? Yeah, okay. Everything else pretty much stayed the same. We do have a little bit more for fire suppression just because we are getting some older hose come through. Fire suppression does all of our hose. We are looking at a company to come through and help us test our hose. One, it's a lot safer for our guys instead of our guys testing it in-house. Right now we have, I don't know if sometimes you'll drive by and you'll see hoses sticking out the front end. They're fully charged. Sometimes those nozzles will blow off. So it's kind of a safety issue, but there's a company that can come out and help us. We'd split the cost with the rule board on that, but and also to help replace a lot of our outdated hose. So the other thing we're looking at is our vehicle maintenance, just moving it up just a little bit. Everything's costing a little more. So we're starting to get up there in some of our vehicles, so just to make sure we have that. Our property maintenance, we're going to move that up just a little bit, just in case we do get those 2 employees, we can update our apartment. Our apartment is, it's a little outdated, but they do have living quarters up top there, so we want to just make sure that we have everything ready to go. We can bump that back down next year if needed. And then uniforms, of course, with getting 2 more employees, we're looking at moving that up a little bit. And then education and training. Anything you put EMS fire in front of, your dollar signs go up. So we're looking to up that 3,000. So, and other than that, everything else is going to stay the same pretty much. So.
Do you have any capital items this year?
Yes, we do have 3 capital items. We are putting back again for our ladder truck, 150,000. We are starting to save for a new engine. We put another 100,000 in for that. And then our SCBA bottles, every year we do that. So I think next year we'll look at maybe just making that a line item since that's an every year deal. We have to replace those every year. So that's another 25,000 for capital too.
Got it.
So.
Thanks.
I have a general question. Just what do you do? How do you do the education and training? Do they go somewhere, or
Yeah,
how do you do
actually, we do in-house. We can bring people in, we can pay people to come in. And then a couple years we've gone to Indianapolis. It's called FDIC. It's an international fire convention. There's a lot of hands-on training. They also offer it through Colorado. A lot of our training is at will. So, a lot of these guys, they can go do it when they want. Like right now we're sending 2 to EMT class through the college. So it's pretty much, that's how we do our training. But if we need to pay someone to come in and, do a little hands-on training with us, we do it that way too. So.
That's great. So then if you hire new guys, then they go and get that kind of training?
Yeah, so if we do hire new guys, it'll be an EVT position. So
What's that, EVT?
Emergency Vehicle Technician. So basically, they can fix our trucks in-house instead of us sending our trucks out. Right now, one of the points I didn't bring up is if I have a piece of equipment break on a Friday afternoon, that piece of equipment might not get fixed unless I pay one of my guys now overtime, which I don't have a budget for, to fix it over the weekend or get it fixed. It might not be fixed until Monday afternoon or Tuesday. It could be a vital piece of equipment that I need throughout the weekend. We don't know when calls are going to go off. So there is an EVT training they can go through, and it just different steps, pumps, engines, and basics like that. So it helps us throughout the house.
That's interesting. And I will say, I did look into your ratings, and I was really amazed because most of them are not that high for a town this size. I'm impressed with the rating that you have.
Well, thank you. That's, like I said, something we pride ourselves on, and we want to keep it there. So.
Hey, Trey.
Yes.
You said tornado goes off in Fort Morgan and Log Lane.
Mhm.
You said it's the one off in Morgan Heights.
I actually think we do. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost positive we do.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good job.
What did you say your capital was again, and why didn't you put that on the budget?
I thought it was on there.
The capital items are in the capital budget,
Yeah.
Kevin, but they are on the list if you look at the capital fund.
So our capital funds were just 3 things. It was 150,000 for our ladder truck, $100,000 for our engine, and then $25,000 for SCBA's. And what we do that every year so we can save, because right now a new ladder truck's going to run 1.5 million. So the engine will cost us around $700,000. So we try to save. So our ladder truck actually went in for extensive work this year. We were able to sneak it in this year and get a lot of work done on it to make sure we can make it last for the next 10 years. So.
Okay, good, thanks.
All right. Nothing else? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Trey.
Thanks, Trey. Okay, next is building inspection. So, Mr. Kirkendall.
Hello.
Good job.
So, anyway, we got 2 items that we're raising, and one's for the credit card, and it kind of ties in with the data processing, which that one there is, I wanted to kind of, we had some training on that. We're getting close, toot the horn on that one, because that's going to open up the city to the computer world so people can contact, get permits, get registered, get plan reviews, do all sorts of things with this new program that we're working to do. And when we get closer to bringing that out to be live for the public, I'll bring Andrea up here and she can fill you in on what it can and can't do. So Steve was kind of part of the process before he moved downtown on us, or uptown, whatever. But anyway, we had worked with the previous vendor that we have for finance, but they were never able to move forward with getting this program. And with COVID, it really showed that if we would have had something, it would have helped tremendously. So without knowing exactly what COVID's going to mean in the future, this will help open the windows so people don't have to come in. They can do stuff online, and we can
save time.
Reach out, like Allison was saying, when we get something, this will give us another tool that we can put something out and reach out and grab all those contractors easier, because we'll have a computer program that will do that for us easier now.
That's good.
But we, like I said, we did a little bit of training on that today, and that was the lady that's, we did the Zoom stuff, so that kind of showed what we can do on the computer when we're not face to face. So that's next year, that price will go down for after the budget. This is just to get us up running and get everything going, and once it's worked out there, then it'll actually help the other code enforcement people in town, because then they can, once we get going, they'll be able to pull up an address and it'll tell you whether or not there was a permit issued for a job. So if the PD's running around and somebody's out there doing something on a project, if they got their computer program, maybe they can make it work together and see whether or not that person should be out there working, or if they have a permit to begin with. And then it also helped the public if you have a neighbor that's working over the weekend, that there's a portal that the public can go to, and they can put in an address, and it'll pull up, says, okay, you've got a roofing permit, but they're going, well, they don't have a permit for siding, so it'll help them to understand whether or not they got it, so they don't have to run somebody down to figure out if their neighbor's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Cool.
So those two are tied together. Then the other one, you'll see that we had 4 items that we decreased. So the telephone, we talked to Nelson, and he said that we could lower that down some. And then the training, since we got our, Andrea got in and got her permit tech, and she got certified and stuff, so that's lowered that down a little bit, so we don't have to have as much on the training. And then the last 2 items, data processing and office equipment, we didn't feel a need, because we did the office shuffle, and everything got taken care of this year, so we don't need that next year.
We charge them rent to be there?
Actually, they were paying rent when they were in the complex. We're just going to finish that out for this year. I think next year, Jeannie and I and others have been working on the whole rent structure And the reason they paid rent when they were in the complex is because the electric department owned that building. And so they were paying rent to the electric department. Well, the city, I guess, owns the senior center. The general fund owns the senior center. So there's no need to pay any rent next year. Most likely that will go away and change. But we're working on what that rent structure looks like for next year. So
that was the number they said put in, so I put it in.
We like to give Brent a hard time for charging people for rent, so. I don't have any questions.
No? All right, thank you.
okay, so next we have municipal court. So Jason?
Hi. This is my first time trying to give a presentation for budget, so I'm hoping I won't ruin it up too bad. The first one on that first line item, I don't think I deleted that one correctly. If you see any numbers in there, I was doing that figure on my own, and so Mr. Brennan, I let him know that I didn't have that done, and he was going to try to work with that.
Okay.
Down below, it looks like everything's pretty much the same until you get down to, is it line, I don't know what number it is, it's the data processing that also has to do with video advisement. And so when we see defendants in the municipal court on a day that they're on video, such as this, we're billed a little bit extra. It started, I believe, this last year before I came on board. If you go down to the education and training, it looks like $2,500 was budgeted for this year, and unfortunately, because of COVID, not much of that is going on, and it's still at zero as far as I know. But I'm anticipating that next year there will be some conferences that will be held at least in person. Right now, I have been able to do some of that training for free with some of the listservs, CAMCA, some of the NJC, National Court Security, stuff like that. So it's still been a benefit, but I think everybody's kind of done a little bit on let's not charge everybody the biggest price we can just because everybody's kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place right now. So that comes down to the only one that's a huge change is the other contracted labor. Previously, that was only the Union Colony, which is our security system and security company that takes care of the courts on the court days as well. We have the monitor that people have to walk through for security. That's budgeted in there as well. And then CROB Law Services, they are the prosecution services for the municipal court. Prior to 2019 in March, Jason Myers was still the in-house city attorney, and so that was kind of moved all together. Now that we have that contracted out for a special prosecution, I'm hoping that the $45,000 would cover that for the year of 2021. That is all I have at this point. We did put down, we discussed that $1,000 for the court-appointed defense attorney. That's only happened once since I've even been around the court at all. And so I'm not sure that that's probably will be used.
But it's probably just good to keep the line open, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Better be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have streets. JW?
Evening, Council. I'm here to present the budget for the street department for 2021. Across all of our line items, we've only had a couple of increases. One on snow removal of $5,000, and the other on fuel and oil, $5,000 as well. Last year, I kind of went over a little bit, so I figured I better give myself some cushion on that one. So, but everything else is pretty much running about the same.
Awesome.
Any questions?
How's your staffing looking right now? Do you feel like you have,
Full staffed.
is it enough? Do you feel like your crew is
I think we're doing pretty well. Yep,
stretched too
yep.
thin, or, okay.
No more as next year approaches and stuff, as we get into 2022.
Okay.
But right now, I think we're doing pretty well.
Did you get to work during all that when we were sent home?
Oh, yeah, yeah. We
They're super
split
required,
crews
yeah.
for a little while for the COVID
Good.
stuff, but no, the department never went down. We always had
Good.
somebody there.
Good.
One question I had called this week, when are we going to paint the streets?
Right.
Yeah.
As soon as we get
Okay.
done, yep, right there.
All right, good enough, good enough. Good enough. I said, I'll ask.
Oh, no, especially West Street.
Yeah.
It seems like we put paint on that, and that thing it'll wear off in a couple months.
Yeah.
So
That's
we're
where everybody-
working with another company to actually get like a thermoplastic paint, but I keep reaching out to them, but I have trouble getting them to commit. So,
All right.
But we're working on it.
Thanks, Jim.
You bet.
I have a question. It's probably, I don't think it's streets, but I keep forgetting to ask. Who designates routes, truck routes and stuff? Do you do that?
Yeah, I think we adjusted them back when Pat Merrill was the city superintendent.
Wow.
And that was the last time we changed everything around.
There
Kind
was,
of got some of them away from the school routes.
Yeah, there was a man that, he's called me a couple times and I forgot to get it answered. He said that beat trucks, they were going down West Street, but they don't like to because of the school, so they like to go on that road behind, farther west, where Murdoch's
Oh,
is.
right.
But he said it still says truck route on West Street. So
West
they-
Street is a truck route, but it is limited to 80,000 pounds. These beat trucks and stuff are coming through well over 100,000. So that's why we really don't allow the beat trucks and
Yeah,
stuff.
he doesn't want to go down West Street, but he wondered why it was still a truck route, because they don't like using it.
Right.
And he didn't know if that other street was a route or not, an official route.
That is really not our street.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's actually railroad right-of-way.
Oh, okay.
So
It's not even a public roadway.
No.
Oh, wow.
About 4 feet
Yeah,
at the
because he
west side,
wondered
but
if
it's
they would get in trouble going down that instead of West Street.
As far as I know, we haven't gotten in trouble yet
Wow.
for letting them use
So how would they get down there by not going on West if they were too heavy? Where would they
would
legally go?
to go out to County Road 17,
Oh,
I would believe. So, and then they'd have to bring it into County Road R and then come in that way. So
wow, okay.
as far as I know, I don't think the county has that kind of a weight restriction on there, but I shouldn't talk for them.
Okay.
But-
Okay, well, I'll just tell them to do it quietly and don't put on their Jake brakes.
Right. So,
Okay, thanks.
you bet.
Any more budget questions we got for Mr. Willis?
None for me.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sridhar.
We'll see you.
Okay, next we'll tackle the library museum. So Chandra?
Good evening, council.
Hi.
So not a lot of changes in my budget this year. I just have, looks like 2 increases. One increase you'll see is going to be in our memorial fund purchases. We haven't spent much money out of that fund for a while, and I know we have some of that folks were hoping we would use for educational resources. So that'll kind of go into our makerspace funding. And then I've added a little bit to our safety committee fund, because I kind of realized that we hadn't really budgeted for that, but we'd been spending. In 2019, we spent a little over 100. So I put 250 in that one just to make sure we had enough in case we spent some. And we're going to decrease our special reading program by a little bit. I did that just based on the last 3 years that we hadn't been spending as much as we thought we would. And same with the Oh, the software maintenance line, because we switched our ILS service and now we're with AspenCat. It's a lot cheaper, saving us quite a bit of money. So that's why you're seeing a decrease there. Down towards the bottom on our general maintenance property fund, again, I'm decreasing that just based again on the last 3 years. We haven't spent as much as we budgeted for, so I just figured we may as well take that one down a little bit. The janitorial allocation, we just decreased by 1,000. And then the grant expense, we're decreasing a little bit because we are in our second year of our Growing Readers Together grant through the state library, and it's only a 2-year grant, so we won't be getting that money again in the following year. So, and then one last one is I decreased our programming budget by a little bit. We just aren't spending quite as much as we have thought that we would. We have a lot of materials in our basement that we've been using for programming, and I don't foresee us having to purchase much more in the next year. So, do you have any questions?
None.
Okay.
Just a comment that the video was really well done.
Yeah,
and that
we're
was
very-
done by a local man. And if you can believe it, I talked and talked and talked.
Oh, Lynn did a beautiful job.
But they cut most of it out, which was the good
No.
thing. They were able to edit me quite well.
Yes, yeah, he's very good at what he does, for sure.
But
Yeah.
that really a nice. Your comments and Brian's were excellent. And for a local man to do that was great.
Right, well, thank you. Yeah, we were really happy to do it. It was a lot of fun, so. Well, thank you.
Okay, and I think all three of the guys are going to come up for the next one. We've got Ty and Doak and Matt. We've been working a little bit on these, on the golf budget and the cemetery and parks to try to get a little more transparency and maybe account for things a little cleaner so that we can show these, oh, and Adam's here too, show these funds where we're really allocating and spending the money. So I'll let Ty jump in, but glad to have all these guys here tonight. So.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, council. First off, I want to introduce our new golf pro, Adam Blake.
Hi, Adam.
A lot of you might know him. He grew up here in Fort Morgan. He's been in Texas for probably the last 20 years or something. Played on the mini tours. He's worked at golf courses, worked in the industry in a lot of different ways. So we're really excited to have Adam here. He's got a lot of really kind of outside the box, innovative ideas that actually sold me on him when we were driving around talking about the golf course and some of the things we could do. That's what got him the job. So I'm really excited to have him here and see what we can turn that golf course into. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like Steve was trying to say, explain to you, we are taking a totally different approach to golf pro shop, golf maintenance, as well as parks and cemetery. And in a couple of weeks, you'll see a similar approach to recreation. We're separating out the pool from the recreation budget as well as the senior center from the recreation budget. So when I approached Jeannie and Brent at the time with this idea, the idea really came from just better transparency to really know where our money's going, what facilities is spending what money, salary-wise, maintenance-wise, budget-wise. And also, now that I have a turf grass manager in the building at the golf course, he really needs to have access to those maintenance accounts and have really good control over the maintenance of the golf course. So what you'll see with the golf course budget, we have all new account numbers, and that's why, for one reason, on your sheets, you don't see the prior history. What used to be 458 was golf. It was everything pro shop and maintenance. We now have 459 for the pro shop and 460 for golf maintenance. If you want to see those comparisons, I've got a spreadsheet I can email you tomorrow. I can tell you with the pro shop budget, it's obviously a much smaller budget, a lot less for that guy to be in charge of, because he is truly a golf pro now, not a general manager. He's not overseeing the maintenance crew. Couple of things I did change in there. One is our golf cart maintenance line item. We typically put $2,500 in there. That was basically for spark plugs, air filters, oil in our new fleet of carts. That fleet is getting older. I think we're about on our last year of payments back to the utility department for those carts. After Matt Pickering resigned and I spent more time up there, come to realize I had 6, 7 carts down. They needed to be repaired. I shipped them off to get repaired and didn't have the money in the budget. So I want to make sure we have the money in the budget moving forward to keep all 45 carts operational and in good shape. Couple other things on the Pro Shop budget. Adam came to me today, had a great idea. He would really like to see a little bit of extra money in there for special events. His ideas are, family fun night. I've always had a crazy idea of doing a drive-in movie golf tournament on the range. And he was asking, do I have like a special events budget? And he really doesn't. He's got a junior program budget, which is usually $1,000, $1,500, that he can use to buy prizes and knickknacks and noodles and hula hoops or whatever he might use to enhance his junior program teaching-wise. Well, I talked to Jeannie a little bit. We'd like to change that description to special events and kick that from 1,000 to 6,000. So that's a change you don't have on your sheet that I am asking for tonight. I think that's a great idea, and I think another way we can do broader, more outside the box community type events at the golf course and have a little bit of money to spend, maybe it's for food one night for a ladies outing, or maybe it's drinks for the guys, or whatever it might be. But other than that, really the golf shop doesn't change a whole lot, honestly. We lowered a couple of things. Most things stayed the same. The big changes you'll see, there are some increases. Obviously, we're asking for a little bit more on the maintenance side. Matt Underwood will go over that and have his reasoning. The beauty, it's been enlightening having Matt Underwood around. His experience at the Parks Department as well as the cemetery and now at the golf has opened my eyes to some deficiencies in line items for the golf course and areas that we probably need to be putting a little bit more money in to make sure the golf stays in the shape it is now and we don't go backwards again. Lord knows I don't want to go back to last year. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Underwood. We are also working very closely this year with Jeannie on our salaries, taking a much closer look at that so that we as managers, department heads, feel very comfortable with the salaries that are projected. We're not going to talk about that so much tonight, but just know that we are working closely with Jeannie to make sure all that's good and we have the staff that we need to make sure we're taking care of the property. So any questions on those changes? And like I said, if you want to see, from 2017 on comparison, I did compile them all into the old sheet. And you'll be able to see that. If you'd like me to email it to you tomorrow, I can. Or I'll send it to Steve.
Yeah, we'll just send that out to you tomorrow so that you can have that as a comparison.
Does that help answer some of your questions, Brian, that you had earlier? Okay. All right.
I got a quick question for you, Ty.
Yep.
What is cost of sales?
Okay.
It is like the last time down there.
Yeah.
The cost of sales Pro Shop.
So that's a great question. There's actually, there's at least 3 things in the Pro Shop that are I don't know, how would you describe, they're kind of floating expenses. We have the stay and play expense, which can change. We budget $5,000, but if I have several large outside groups that come and book hotel rooms that include a round of golf, I could expense $8,000 in that line item, but I brought in $10,000 of revenue, so that's offset by revenue. Same with cost of goods sold, Kevin. That's the cost of any purchases we brought in for merchandise. So one year it might be $37,000 at the end of the year. The next year it might be $58,000. Those of you that have been here for a while have seen on years that we know the REA tournament is going to do their gift through the Pro Shop. Our sales in the Pro Shop will jump $15,000 with one tournament just because they do their tournament gift, which is a $13,000, $15,000 order. So cost of goods sold just moves with revenue sold in the merchandise department. If Adam does his job and he sells $75,000 in merchandise next year, cost of goods sold will probably be more than $40,000, but we'll have brought in $75,000 of revenue for it. Same with food and beverage cost of goods sold, Kevin, same deal. We average about $30,000 in a year. We create usually around $55,000 or so in revenue from food and beverage. I always looked at that as food and beverage more as an amenity to the service. So as long as I could create enough revenue to pay for Marlene and keep her on site and doing what she does, I was happy. Hasn't been a great year with COVID as far as food and beverage goes. I know it hasn't been as good a year as she wanted, but food and beverage cost of goods will fluctuate as well. So does that help, Kevin? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thanks, Ty.
Yep. Any other questions? All
Can you
right.
go backwards just a little bit? You
Yep.
said the additional line item that's going to be for like community engagement activities will be added.
So 3235 junior golf program. I'm just going to change that to say junior golf / special events.
Cool.
And change it to 6,000.
Okay.
Then we'll have room for, I know Adam and I talked when I was teaching a ton, you know, I used noodles, hula hoops. I decorated the putting green for putting contests, you know, where the kids had to roll the ball through, all kinds of fun stuff. So he'll have some money there to go to Walmart, buy some supplies. Again, he may buy a bunch this year, not use them in the future. Same deal, you know, maybe we do a glow in the dark driving range night and we rent targets or something. He can use that to help supplement that event. Obviously, you know, we're in the golf business, so typically when we run an event, we're going to charge a fee of some kind to get people out there. But I think it's a good, you know, the way we did the employee picnic, a lot of the events we've had at the golf course.
Best day of my life, just
the
so you
last
know.
couple of years, I really like, because there's a lot of community members here that don't even know where the golf course is. And the
Right.
more people we can get out there to do, even if it's an activity that's not golf related, I think is good for all of us. So.
Yeah, I think for the investment we make in that space, I think
Yep.
it's very important to me that we're bringing people out that aren't traditionally connected to golf.
Yeah,
or
and
to
it
introduce
is,
more people to the sport. So
You know, it's a beautiful property.
Yeah.
One of the best views in all of Morgan County is up there on 18T when the sun's going down. It's awesome. The power plant lights up, looks like it's a pirate ship. It's super cool. So, yeah.
looking forward to
I
that.
always talk too much. I apologize. Matt?
Thanks, Ty.
Good evening, everybody. Ty
Hi.
speaks highly of me. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. So I'll just jump right in. I'm sure some of you will have questions. My goal in all of this, along the line, working side by side with Ty and all the parties involved, is, for me, is if you ask me a simple question, what's it take to take care of a golf course, that I have the most direct, clear reasoning, rationale, and cost there is for it. And that this is a first step, you know, towards getting there. A few of the things that are consistent line items that have always been there that are carried over just under my control that we will raise. Tools and equipment in the past was 2,000. It'll now be 4,000, hopefully. We'll call it tools, equipment, and safety, stealing from the parks model of doing that. One thing in a deal that we do there, we really didn't have anything safety-wise, you know, as far as, you know, dedicated towards eyeglasses, proper stuff, you know, chainsaw, the pants we wear when we do chainsaws, various things like that. So that's what that is. Sprinkler system maintenance, I'd like to take it up to 5,000 more to 10,000. For example, golf course actually is 3 times bigger than the cemetery itself, and also it has the top of the line irrigation system, valve in head, pretty much the priciest you can get, and we've been operating off the same irrigation budget. So the math just never quite added up on that one to me. I thought that was a pretty good justification. Uniforms, we kind of split that one up and changed it. That's, once again, along the idea of what we've always done at parks. As you can tell with my background being with Doak and that, I try to make a consistent model across for us to compare to. I am asking for 10,000 more in chemicals and FERT. Because of the deteriorating water conditions out there, salt contents and everything else, we need to treat it more amendments that sit there and help us battle that LDS. An additional 10,000 will go a long ways. You see it on there that I said it dependent on capital projects in the future. This is something that's going to be fun to revisit once we put a new pump station in and we address some of that capital stuff there. The stuff that we'll be able to implement in there through fertigation, magnation, a lot of things have proven data for the last decade reduction, sometimes as much as 50% in water usage for utilities, for fertilizer, chemical usage. So that's really could come back to us once we make that investment further down the line. But for the time being, we just need to treat that water to make the grass as green as we can. And then finally, you know, the big one, dues and subscriptions was going to have an additional essentially $10,000 added to it this year. Now that's a huge number. It would basically incur a new 3-year contract with NSN, who is the carrier of ours. With that contract, we're operating a system that's 2 years generationally behind as far as the data and the software. It would update our stuff, but more importantly, renew our 24-hour a day, you know, locked in service contract, which is huge out there given the PCLs and the electronics that we run. Now you'll see that it had lapsed at the start of 2019. I could sit up here and BS on why that happened. The fact is it happened somewhere along the line. A contract which we were re-upping once a year, that paperwork didn't get filed. I'll own that. That's on me through reorganizing and stuff. I wasn't even made aware that we've been operating the entire 2020 year off contract. When I found that out, visited with Ty, this will get us back up to speed there. Again, it's a one-time payment, take care of the next 3 years, and then we'll be able to get back in a yearly service model.
Tell me what that is. You've talked in letters, and I don't.
NSN is
out here.
NSN. It's basically just. It's the National Service Network. So our computer system, like everything nowadays, is computer-based.
Yeah.
So we operate 18 satellites through our irrigation system, which each one of those operate up to 68 heads/sections at an individual time. So if you were to walk into our pump house, I mean, it's like a massive computer wall.
Okay, wow.
PCL control units, all sorts of stuff like that. A lot of parts that, quite frankly, that's another reason why we're going to capital with it. The company no longer even in existence. So when we get parts, it's a struggle. Our NSN support package basically means that if we have an issue, within 24 hours, they'll have someone on site helping us correct said issue, because this isn't, you know, I'd love to sit there. My pops is a lifelong electrician. If I called him out there, he wouldn't have a clue. So that's really all it is. NSN, National Service
It
Network.
alerts you if there's something wrong with a head somewhere?
When our new system, that's where we're 2 generations behind with the current system, which hasn't been updated since, I believe, 2015. Our new system then will update those capabilities as well. So if we have a stuck head, anything like that, yes, it can set up a network to where it'll talk to us. It's another reason why the new pump station will work hand in hand.
Wow.
It's a humbling thing. There's a lot of working parts just on the irrigation side alone. But with stuff so complicated comes big numbers, and that's not lost on me with that ask. I just know that essentially it's a necessity, and unfortunately we're in that position right now.
Sometime I would love to go out and
Yeah.
see what they're doing so I can know what you're talking about a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
absolutely. We can get you up there. Yep.
Okay, that'd be great.
Is there any other questions?
I would like to see, or if you'd send me the comparison for last year compared to this. I mean, you know me, I'm a big fan of the golf course, I'm a big supporter, but it's also a great big portion of, or a chunk of the budget for a place that hasn't been producing the revenue and everything. So I'd like to see a comparison, if you would, Ty, send me last year to this year.
Yeah, we'll get that out to all of you tomorrow.
All righty. Anything else regarding golf maintenance?
As far as like the grounds, like say in Tylenol, like on number 4, they cut down those 2 big trees. Are you gonna replace those trees, or is that something for next year's budget?
That's something we would work with the arborist, the local arborist and stuff on. Yeah, when we take those down, the good thing is between our maintenance, our general maintenance budget, it's got enough money to sit there and be able to replant those trees without turning around and having to do anything special on capital or anything like that. Working with Parks and Doak and the arborist, we would sit there, and with their money available, they may have money to help us out on that as well. But I don't anticipate any issues as far as replacing trees. If anything, that's where last year they increased that general maintenance budget, was so as we move forward, we could handle some of the aesthetics that we've been battling the last couple of years. Because like you said, even with the parks model, we always want to aim for, if we remove a tree, let's replace it. Now, it's going to be a lot of tree replacement out there, but it's also something that, yes, we definitely want to do, if anything, for the aesthetic, but the wildlife out there too that tends to nest and enjoy that. But yeah, we plan, that's on the plan and scheduled to do so. Fortunately, we will be able to handle that coming out of our general maintenance budget as is.
Want to do the cemetery while you're up there?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Do cemetery and parks, we did the exact same thing there. We tried to split that department out into two new departments, if you will, for just transparency, so.
So regarding cemetery and parks, the one subtle difference between dividing this one up was, as much as we split golf and golf maintenance, a lot of those line items, one just went to one, the other went to the other. So there wasn't much change, you know. Obviously, there wasn't a need for general maintenance for the pro shop, so it went with me. So those lines were a lot more direct. So Doak and I, working together, we had to sit there and we had to do a little bit more of a deep dive as far as like needs to individually run our deals. Now, fortunately, learning under Doak at the parks and using Doak's tracking system over the last 5 years, we've always been very much in sync on how we track stuff and in issues like that. So you'll see a lot more of the same line items from budget to budget, but with a little bit different. Now, one good thing is Doak pointed out today, when you get the information from Ty, what the combined budget totals are, Parks and Cemetery actually splitting these up based off numbers and everything like that, we're actually coming in still slightly under what the overall budgeted amount was for both departments combined last year.
Wow.
So while there's a few items that my Doak may have added a little bit to where I have on our individual one, we've also saved on other areas by not having to share. So realistically speaking, combined fertilizers and chemical, you know, is 12,000. Again, these are difficult to say it went up on anything because based off of what it was, it looks significantly less for both of us because the number you'd be comparing it to was reduced. But really, Fert and chemical, I think, are that's really the main line item between the two of us that you'll see a big jump to. Well, not even a big jump, maybe a couple thousand. But beyond that, this is right in line of what we've always operated at. Just basically Doak taking his piece of the pie and me taking mine and making it work for an individual operation versus combined. So I can answer any specific questions based directly off of what I've asked for. It's just kind of saying this is improved when I don't have a number saying it's $2,000 more than last year. It'd be a little bit more difficult, so.
I have a question. I brought it up, I can't remember when, but I get a lot of complaints about the roads in there, and because a lot of people walk through there and ride their bikes and drive through there, and there's complaints, and I ride my bike, the potholes. And I understand you can't do the whole thing, but do you have, do you keep some of that up when the potholes get bad?
We do. We in-house through our maintenance of property at the cemetery, JW helping us out. We turn around and we buy cold patch, which allows us to address individual potholes throughout the deal. When we get really bad areas, Ken, JW have always been great about coming over and helping us patch those. Unfortunately, as they point out, this is their wheelhouse. We don't have a lot of base to work with. It's not a linear setup by any stretch of the imagination. So it's one of those rare things within the cemetery. You have no choice but to water the roads because that's how the irrigation was set up. It crosses over. There's one head in this section that's meant to water this section. That being said, at budget meeting, we did discuss with Steve and Ty the notion that in future years coming, that we probably wanted to start putting in a line item that would specifically address road maintenance, if anything more than to start saving for future options on that. Unfortunately, as everyone sees with Strictly for Streets, a section of road is an expensive item, and we got a lot of road in there, and a little bit tricky as far as when exactly you could shut down a cemetery, not water the grass in the middle of summer, and hopefully no one passes in that actual section you're working in while maintenance is still taking place. It's I've long said I look forward to the day someone walks through the office door and says, "Hey, Matt, I got the best idea." It makes me look dumb for never thinking it. In the meantime, though, we have addressed with Steve and Ty the notion that we need to start looking at that. but it's definitely a tricky, it's definitely a tricky.
Yeah, and there's roots, and I could sure see the problems of it, but
Yes.
there's a lot of, it's a well-loved cemetery. It's a favorite park. A lot of people walk through there and even drive, but
It is, and you're 100% correct. There's no one who has more of a love-hate relationship with the cemetery, in particular its roads, than the cemetery staff. Believe me, we see it. I'm actually surprised we don't get rung up from the public as much as we do about it. At the same time, I think they understand that Riverside Cemetery is 100 years old.
yeah.
I mean, there's 2 overlays, irrigation that runs underneath it. Just last week, we had to dig across one section and remove a 3-foot by 17-foot section of the road.
But just patching,
Huh?
just a little, as patching as you can.
Yeah,
I
and-
think that, just to make it a little smoother, I think people would be satisfied.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what we are in the process of working on.
Good, good, good.
Any other questions?
None for me.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Joke.
And then Doak.
Good evening.
Hi.
I believe I'm the last one on the budget for tonight, so I'll try to make it quick. Matt and Ty pretty much explained that we split up the cemetery budget as not part of the parks budget anymore, so as Matt was saying, we didn't really add any, excuse me, any major amounts of money to any of those individual line items. For the Parks Department, I did ask for an increase of $2,000 on the tree maintenance program, up from $18,000 to $20,000. I'm sure you're aware there's been a lot of trees dying this year.
Yes.
We're trying to get them removed as quick as we can. Hopefully a little bit bigger budget next year will help us along on that. Just a bad combination of hot, dry weather during the summer and last year's fairly nice spring. The trees started to bud out, and then we had a really hard freeze in April. I think got a lot of trees also. So that budget line item went up $2,000. The only other really increase I had was on the mosquito control program. This year was the last year of a 3-year contract. So next year we'll be going out to bid to renew those, get a new contract. Unfortunately, there's only one company in the state anymore that provides that service of mosquito control. So I'm hoping they don't come in too much higher than they had before. But I did increase that line item $5,000 to cover for any increase in that budget amount. But I will say the trap numbers came back really low this year on our mosquitoes. Really a lot lower than they had been.
I couldn't believe that there was no mosquitoes this year. I've never had to spray myself with off when I work outside.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
trap
been-
numbers, especially in the Brenda Joy area, were last year they were high every week, and not once this year did we have to go out and have the company fog for mosquitoes. This year it never hit that threshold.
That's why it's replacing mosquitoes, I think.
That
At
could
least
be.
they're not as bad.
That could be. But, so that's the only other line item. I went up from 45,000 to 50,000 on that. Everything else stayed pretty much the same, or went down a little bit. I did drop $5,000 from swimming pool maintenance account, just in that we've caught up with new pumps and motors over there that hopefully we won't have to be replacing in the next year or two. Any questions?
We love the parks. They look great, and all the flowers down at the library and all over. Met the girls that were out pulling weeds in the hot weather.
Yeah, that's never ending.
Yeah, that was great. Appreciate it all, and then hope you do get some extra money to catch up on the trees, because there's a lot of dead, and people complain about that too.
Yeah, it's just impossible to keep up with all the
Yeah.
dead trees. But we're
Doug,
working on it.
How are you doing with staffing right now for your department?
We're doing pretty well. We do have another full-time position coming open next year.
Great.
That we want to add another position next year. but.
And
that
what's
will-
your goal for the scope of work for that position?
It'll be overall, with the new field house coming in next year, it's going to take a lot of man hours just to maintain the new field house, all that property. We don't currently have a athletic field maintenance person.
Okay.
We're having to fill in on that part of it. We lost our athletic field person last year.
Okay,
So they'll do a lot of everything.
great.
Will they be mowing the senior center too over in there?
Yes, we're currently mowing the
Yeah.
new senior center. We're having to take that
Spread out
over,
over there.
plus the old one. And then with all the mowing at the new field house will be quite extensive also.
Joe, do you take care of the trails
We do.
on there? Is there a line item for the trails?
No, that's just under our general maintenance of property,
Okay.
or general maintenance.
To the north, this is kind of off budget. Are they open now, that trail?
That area is open to walk through. Ty can fill you in a little more on that. We have more going on.
Yeah, if you want. Actually, went out and drove it a little bit yesterday. So you can clearly see the trail now and go out there and walk, but it is kind of soft right now. I would take a good pair of boots, but it's probably better than it was 2 months ago when the grass was 4 feet high. So yeah, go out there. And it's actually always been open, Brian. The only difference is it was always open just with a little skinny walking gate, and we weren't maintaining a trail. So I think a lot of people weren't using it. And so that's kind of part of this process of building the trails out there, is hopefully we'll have a maintained surface. And I think that'll drive more people to get out there and use it. But
No, some people said they walked and they said it was great.
yeah, it's really gonna be special. I drove it with Todd Kozads, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife guy for our area the other day, and he's super excited. We're gonna do a lot of cool things out there.
That's a completely different landscape out there on the north side. Completely different than south of the river. I think it's gonna be pretty exciting.
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Dope. Thanks, guys.
Woo.
All right. Next is public comment, audience participation for items not on the agenda.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, staff, press. I'm here tonight on two items. One, I want to congratulate Mr. Gladmeyer for becoming the new manager.
Thank you very much.
The second item is one that's, right now we have a new asset in the city of Fort Morgan called the Gene Doty Senior Center. That is a beautiful building, lots of room, lots of space. But there is a concern among those of us who utilize it. The acoustics are horrible. And I didn't know who to talk to or what to do, or if there's something, is there something that can be done to alleviate some of to get better acoustics in there? Because I was over there this morning for exercise class, and it was so noisy we couldn't hear ourselves think. When I was over there playing cards, it was still extremely noisy. I didn't know who to contact, but I'm deaf on acoustics. I'm not saying they have to be perfect, but we just need to make them better. For instance, supposing you have a banquet in the new senior center. Currently, that would be a nightmare to try to talk, because there's too many conversations going on and you're not going to be able to hear anybody think. When I played the piano over there for the open house, it about drove me nuts, because I'm used to a concert hall with good acoustics. I don't mean they have to be perfect, but at least halfway decent. I don't know if Mr. Hamer or Mr. Gladmeyer can help me out on that, but is there something that you can do to help the acoustics in the new senior center? 'Cause that's the
Is
beauty.
it worse than the old building?
Oh, yes, yes.
So I think we can sure take a look at that for you, Jerry. and-
I don't know because, you know, I mean, I'm with Mr. Doty. He built that senior center for all the senior citizens in the city of Port Morgan to utilize, and he doesn't want it to be empty. And I agree with him. But if all of you would have been at the senior center this morning to the exercise class, I was just about ready to leave. I couldn't hardly take it. It was so noisy. Now, Mr. Sampson is a wonderful man, and he tried to explain how we want to build with COVID, how we want to do the breakup. None of it. We were in a circle in the dining room. We couldn't hear him. And normally at the old senior center you could, even though their acoustics weren't good either. So if there is something you can do to make the acoustics better in that beautiful building, please do it. Because that building needs to be utilized for all kinds of events, even at night. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jerry. We'll
Thank you,
definitely
Jerry.
take that into consideration. We'll
Good. One more item, and this is clear off the topic. The Blue Book will be coming out. I've been studying these so-called amendments or the initiatives. When you get your Blue Book this year, please read them carefully, because there could be some tricky wordings in there. 'Cause I've looked at the legislative website on initiatives, and so when it comes out, be very careful. If you have a chance to go to any open forums dealing with the discussion of the pros and cons, do it. Because we've got some, the wording is going to be very tricky. Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right. Next on the agenda is reports by officials and staff. Mr. Gladmeyer.
Just a couple of things, I think, quickly to update you on. Big day for the field house. I tried to send out a photo this morning. They started to set some of the steel columns and actually some of the steel rafters. So pretty exciting to see the building start to come out of the ground. We're working on a ceremony to, we call it a beam signing ceremony. These are typically done with buildings of this nature, and you invite folks out to actually sign part of the structure, and then it gets raised into the structure. We're actually working on an event where we would invite the youth of the community to come out and actually put a handprint on it or sign their name. And these would be a couple of structures that you'll be able to see. They'll be exposed and visible throughout the life of the facility, so that when they come into the field house, they'll be able to see their handprint when they were 5, you know, and they come back when they're 30 or whatever. And yeah, I think that's a neat idea, and so we're working on that. We're going to schedule that for September the 12th. In the morning from 10 to 12, and so more information to come on that, but pretty excited to offer an opportunity to get the kids out and leave their mark on the field house, if you will. So again, as the building comes out of the ground, love to get you over there and give you a tour and show you what that's looking like. It's pretty exciting for us. So. Sarah and I have been making some trips downtown, and again, that's been well received. We went and visited a couple more businesses last Friday, and continuing just to get my face and name into those businesses and say hi and leave my card and offer any assistance or support that the city can have with our downtown businesses. So it's been good, and it's been fun to meet folks and business owners downtown. So. I think Sarah had a couple of things she wanted to update us on.
Brown said you bought a pair of shoes.
Yes.
You told me you were in.
Hi, so yeah, I just have a couple of items that I wanted to let you guys know and the community as well. So as you know, we finally awarded all the businesses that applied for our Reopen Safe, Reopen Strong business grant. A lot of them were very excited that they were able to receive funds to really help them, especially during this time. We had a lot of businesses express their gratitude, not only to city staff, but as council for you guys having such a great vision and being progressive, especially as a rural community. You don't see that very often, giving out grants, direct funds to businesses, and for us to say that we did that, it's pretty amazing. I did have one additional business come in today, and she just wanted to express her gratitude. It's Deborah Watson. She's a CPA and has a practice here in Fort Morgan, and so she just wanted to say thank you to all of you for having that vision and moving forward with the grant. The second item that I have is really exciting. CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation, they have a revitalized Main Street grant program, and we went ahead and applied, and we were notified last week that we did receive the funds.
Woo.
It is a grant for $45,000 that we will be using to create outdoor public seating space and also a campaign around the idea of bicyclists and pedestrians sharing the road with vehicles. So we're really excited. We're going to be moving really fast on that. We have to spend the money this year, so you'll see some things coming up pretty soon. But yeah, that's all the news I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
I wondered if I was going to send
Ty?
that to you, 'cause it came through my stuff.
I wanted to say thank you, Jerry. You're absolutely right. The acoustics in the senior center are quite awful if there's more than one conversation going on in that room with the vaulted ceilings, the laminate floors. Luckily, our resident sound expert is in the room behind us right now, reviewing our audio-video system for chambers, so I'll get with Michael in the next week or two. And we'll figure out what we can do. I know there's different art fixtures and things we can hang to help with the acoustics, so we'll look into that, and I'll get you some numbers, Steve, as soon as I can.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
Anybody else? Okay, I think that's it for updates from us.
Yeah, I have something that I'd like to bring up. I would like to suggest that we have a campaign or a program or something like that. Something that my wife saw in a newspaper somewhere or something, and we've done it, but anyway, support the blue. And all it would be a campaign trying to get the word out to the population to put a blue light bulb in their porch light, and just to show support for our police officers this time when there's not a whole lot of that. The other thing that I kind of talked to Chief about was if we have a community that shows its support of its police officers and everything, it might be a lot easier to recruit from these areas where there is not that. And you hear about all these guys that are thinking of quitting or retiring early or any of that sort of stuff. So anyway, I would throw that out there and see if maybe staff could come up with an idea as far as a way to get that out, to just ask people to put out a blue light bulb.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, great idea.
I think that's definitely something we can work on. We've got a supervisor meeting coming up on Friday. I think that's a pretty good topic to discuss. I think that's something we can definitely take up. As I've said before, I think we definitely got support from community, and it's definitely nice, not just community, but from council as well. And I think there definitely will be some people on board to definitely support of what you're trying to do, Kevin. I sure appreciate that.
I second that. I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Next on the agenda is bids, meetings, and announcements. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you. The city's got a number of bids out right now, accepting sealed bids for fiberglass poles until 3 p.m. on September 2nd, RE and PVC conduit and material until 3 p.m. on September 3rd, demolition of houses and farm buildings project until 3 p.m. on September 3rd, Police Department Evidence Room Building Project until 3 p.m. on September 9th. Proposals from qualified certified public accounting firms to audit the financial statements until 4 p.m. on September 9th. Pad-mounted transformers until 3 p.m. on September 10th. precast restroom facility at the Twaymore Trails project until 3 p.m. on September 10th, and a shelter structure to be installed at the Twaymore Trailhead until 3 p.m. on September 10th. Under meetings, well, this isn't exactly a meeting, but Labor Day is next Monday, so all city offices will be closed. The Planning Commission is scheduled to meet September 14th at 4:30 p.m. here at City Hall, and the next City Council regular meeting is September 15th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall.
All right, if nothing else, I get to do this for the first time as Mayor Pro Tem. Meeting is adjourned.
Good job, Clint.
Thanks.